Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and in this essay I'd like to look at it's International Refugee Day. It's either today or tomorrow or yesterday, whenever it was, but it's been very recently, and there's been this huge uptick in propaganda that leads up to this International Refugee Day or International Asylum Seeker Day. So I just wanted to look at that. The pro-mass immigration propaganda is being seriously ramped up. I even got an email from a business website asking me to, because I own a share or have a share in a business, asking me to make a pledge to hire alleged asylum seekers. So these business websites are actually going directly to business people saying, make a pledge to hire an asylum seeker. Why you would do that? Well, it's all okay. Oh, it just would be wonderful. It's so good. You know, can't you smell the diversity and so on? They don't give a reason for it, just say that you should. And there's a certain amount of moral pressure put on you. If you don't do it, it's possible you could be Hitler. Oh yeah. So just reviewing a handful of pro-mass immigration vids that have come up just in the last couple of weeks. The lies and the misrepresentations are beyond breathtaking. We'll come back to some of those in a moment. Out of the propaganda vids that I've sort of done an amalgam of, there's one I'm going to focus on in particular. Now, it's presented by a homosexual immigration NGO activist. He's very prominent in the NGO activist area of promoting mass immigration, promoting refugees and asylum seekers, and trying to shame the West into taking it through. Also, now they're funded by a Soros front group, generously funded, by the way. Now, they don't declare any of the things. I don't so much mind people doing videos and saying, oh, by the way, I'm a homosexual activist, I'm very much involved in this, I've been putting out propaganda for years, and I'm backed by NGOs that are super pro-mass immigration. I don't. If they declare that, I don't mind. I mean, it means that what they claim or assert would have no value. So they don't do it. They purposefully hide that or minimise it or conceal it so they can have more striking power, if you will, in their propaganda. They try and falsely pass themselves off as independent and it's factual, they're dealing with facts and they're non-aligned, they're just telling the truth, which is, of course, outrageous in itself. They're not. They're pushing full-on propaganda. In one of them, they use a couple of academics from universities, and what they use is like ballast. Well, hey, prove the expert says so, and this guy, the main guy they use, is also a homosexual activist who's very prominent in NGO pipelines to bring gay people into the West from Islamic countries. So again, but none of that's declared. They don't say any of this, which they should. It's vital in understanding and accepting what they're saying. So they want you to believe their lies and concealing the activism that is driving the whole thing. And it just makes this ridiculous propaganda even more disingenuous. It seems like it's pitched at sort of high school kids, to give talking points to high school kids or maybe sociology kids in college or something like that. But no discerning person would accept a word of what's going on here. But anyway, let's have a look at this. Now, this propaganda, this mass immigration refugee, asylum seeker propaganda begins with a four-part and super prejudicial premise that mass migration is an undisputed moral good. You just have to accept moral good. If you don't believe that, then you're evil. And it is, secondly, a huge, indeed massive economic boost and boon to the West and to the Western economies. Now, then it goes to the insanely fantastic assertion that far-right bigots and xenophobes control all Western governments. Every Western government is aggressively opposed to any sort of migration, aggressively opposed to it. And the entire international and mainstream media is absolutely opposed to mass migration, refugees and asylum seekers. Now, the reality, of course, is the exact opposite of that. And how can masses of mass migration be taking place on the scale it is and has been if all these governments and media are opposed to it? Well, they don't bother with that. They just claim, we're little people, we're just fighting back against Hitler. And so now there was a claim that things, the politics of Europe and elsewhere, wherever mass migration has been in place, is moving away from a pro-mass migration, the people, the voters, moving away from either a neutral or a pro-migration mass migration stance to a negative, taking negative views on it. They're saying, well, these negative views are just unjustified because mass migration, refugees, asylum seekers are just so good. They're so incredibly good. And again, this is sort of just asserted without really substantiating it at all. Now we're told that the people who oppose mass migration are in effect Hitler, and they're hiding in every bowl of cornflakes, floating in every coffee cup, and hiding under every bed and closet. Interesting, a quick line was inserted just before they moved on to the next stage here, which was that people from poor countries have a right to move to rich countries. Not that they're refugees or asylum seekers or anything. They just have a right to move in pursuit of a better life. So they're just looking for, hey, we'll go to a richer economy that'll give us more handouts. And now, why do they have this right? Well, just cause. And that's it. They just move straight on. Again, very disingenuous type presentation. Now, one video begins with a staggering assertion and monumental lie that mass migration more than doubles economic growth. All the economies of the West will be stuck at 2% growth, but with mass migration, growth is almost 5%. 5% economic growth. Who wouldn't want that? That is fantastic. And if it wasn't for mass migration, these growth figures couldn't even be dreamed of. This is the claim. If you look at any stats that I could lay my hands on, then this is just something they've manufactured and pulled out of their ass. These propagandists. That's an outrageous lie. But anyway, they're pushing it. Now another one that had me gobsmacked here was Western nations according to these propagandists, have the capacity to take far more mass migrants, far more. The mass migrants they've had are just nothing. What they should have is 50% of the population of every Western country should be foreign-born from mass migration. And again, if you're against that, you are fucking Hitler. Seriously. And this is well within, so they claim, well within every Western nation's capacity to take. Now, just to give you some idea, in the United States, say that would mean that the United States could take somewhere around 90 million migrants tomorrow, just in one dump. And that would be fine. They could easily manage that. No sweat at all. No big deal. Bang, done. Now, how they arrive at that, they don't say. They just say it is so, and you're supposed to accept that. So if it is, says who? Who can prove that? They add that if there are any strains to public services of any sort, then there's a shoulder shrug by the presenter. Western governments should just build more houses, build more schools, build more hospitals. What's the problem? What's the big deal here? If there's an issue with that, then just build more. Move on. Let's get on to the next point here. So they just assert it again, of which, of course, dead giveaway to the fact that this is propaganda. They then move to debunk the calculus that mass migrants cost a great deal more than they benefit the host country, which they do, and the countries they migrate to, and the claim that migrants consume in resources and cost vastly more than they generate or could ever generate in tax revenue. This, they claim, is simply not true. It's the wrong way of looking at things. You can't just look at the value of things. You have to look at other things, like how many Lebanese restaurants or Indian restaurants get opened up. You have to see the bigger picture, as they would claim here, which is quite ridiculous. But there is no question that migrants cost more. They're low IQ, they can't speak the language, they've got no qualifications, they've got no job experience, and yet they need looking after, they need handouts, they need government benefits. And indeed, that's why they've come. They haven't come to contribute to the economy and the community, they've come to take the handouts. If you're a peasant living a miserable existence in the middle of nowhere and you could go to a place that would give you endless free stuff, then I suppose you'd go as well. So they say, no, that's wrong. You can't look at how much they cost. Then they come up with they go, no, they're no extra cost. Migrants don't cost anything, which of course is again an outrageous lie. They then pivot around and say, well, look, because of all the extra people that are needed to look after the migrants, interpreters, school teachers, medical staff, whatever, all sorts of government employees, and certainly mass migration's been wonderful for the bureaucracy business. They say, well, look at all these extra government people that have to be hired to look after all the refugees. That is increasing employment. So what a bounty. Wow, look at this. Opportunities. Well, no, stop. We're bringing in totally 100% unproductive people and then having to employ a whole bunch of government people to look after that. That's a net cost. That's what the cost. That's what if you do the column on your accounting sheet, that is a cost. So these people are a huge drain and cost. So they shoot their own argument down with just silly points here. So all these extra government employees that have to be hired to look after the mass migrants, that's really not cost at all. It's a sign of vibrant economic growth, which of course again is an utter and total lie. Then they come out with the fanciful thing, well, the only reason migrants aren't generating more tax than costs they consume is that because they don't have well-paying jobs. So if you give these mass migrants, these low IQ peasants with no education, if you give and can't speak the language, if you give them high-paying jobs, then they would pay more tax, and therefore they would be a benefit to the economy because the tax would increase. What? I mean, are these people insane? I mean, problem solved. Just give them all high-paying jobs. Problem solved. Done. The next lie the propagandists move on to is saying, well, look at all the jobs that recent migrants do have, and I don't know if these stats are true, but just for the moment, let's assume they are. They could be invented, I suspect they are, but the next lie they tell is claims that say in this one, I think was, where was this? I think somewhere in Scandinavia, 55% of the bus drivers are recent migrants, 65% of the cleaners, and 40% of the medical staff. Medical staff aren't itemised, could be nurses, doctors, or nurses' assistants, or medical orderlies, or something, I don't know. Now, they say all these are foreign born, so the assertion is that the West would have no buses because there'd just be no bus drivers. I mean, migrants are 55% of the migrants are bus drivers. 55% of the bus drivers are migrants. Then that just proves that if there were no migrants, there'd be no buses. Everybody would have to walk on their hands and knees, bleeding knees. This, of course, is quite absurd. But the West has always had buses and plenty of bus drivers. No shortage of bus drivers. So why would they be claiming that buses only came into existence when mass migrants arrived? I mean, what bullshit is this? The reality is, of course, that there are no more buses than there were, or maybe a few more, but effectively no more buses than there were a few years ago. So no, local white people have been kicked out of those jobs, and those jobs have been gifted to mass migrants who haven't earned it. So it's all through affirmative action programs. Now, cleaners could be a different matter, but again, the inference they make is that no place in the West ever got cleaned until mass migrants arrived. I mean, that's crap. And 40% of medical staff. I don't know. I'm not sure I believe that number, but it's possible. So this is of course quite ridiculous. Now, we also need to look at the white people in these jobs. Bus drivers, for example, nursing staff have been forced out, and affirmative action gigs have been given. So the local population of white people has been forcibly displaced. The local workers are forcibly displaced. Now, how can that be a benefit to any society? But there you go. Now, they then move on to the hoary chestnut of if all that propaganda has failed, then move on to the hoary chestnut that propagandists always reach out for in the mass migrant propaganda, is that all these migrants, really, they're of incredible value. They're all doctors, engineers, rocket scientists, triple, quadruple, quintuple PhDs, every one of them, and must therefore be a huge benefit to any country they choose to go. We should be our hands and knees thanking these people, worshipping the ground, thanking these people for choosing to come to the West and bring their rocket science brilliance with them. Now, based on stats that come out of Australia, less than 5% of the total migrant intake have any chance of integrating into the economy, have any chance of getting a job within a few months or within the first 12 months. So a tiny proportion of the mass migrants, and amongst refugees and asylum seekers, is lower than that. So the reality is that maybe 1 or 2% are of any economic benefit to the host country, but that's it. So that the other 98% are just dead wood. I mean, they're unskilled, illiterate, low IQ peasants who've never had a job in their lives. That's not every single one of them, but that's most of them. Now, the closing point that the propagandists make is that, look, if all of these refugees, it doesn't matter if they're low IQ, no skills, no education, it doesn't qualifications, it doesn't matter because they bring compassion and cultural diversity to the West. Cultural diversity, and this alone makes them superbly worthwhile migrants. I mean, have you ever heard so much bullshit in your life?